A few days ago, I made a video, or not a video, but a post on the channel asking you guys whether or not grades mattered. And I thought I would weigh in on the subject. Most of you said some things that were pretty reasonable, and I agree with. So, do grades matter? Well, it depends on where you're at in your education. So I thought I would take it back to high school and then talk about high school experience, undergraduate, 4-year degree experience, and then graduate school experience. So what do we have about high school? Well, I don't know how much different things are now compared to when I was in high school. Probably not much. But where I went to school, I thought that my high school did a fairly reasonable job of making sure that we were capable in at least the STEM fields. I mean, a high school can only be, or schools in general, I mean, this is pretty much true. You can only do as much as you have the funding for it. A high school that has a lot of money and funds that go through it, they can afford, the type of community it is, will, a lot of the times, it's the old saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, unfortunately. If a high school doesn't have a whole lot of money, then unfortunately that kind of hurts the people that go there. So it also depends on, where you go to high school, unfortunately. I can't really compare my high school with other high schools because I only know my one high school. So, and it's also been a while since I've been there, and I don't know how much things have changed, but I thought for what it was worth, they did a pretty good job. So, when I was in the 8th grade, they put me in the Algebra 1 class because I was a good student. And normally they teach 8th grade math, or Math 8 is what they called it, in the 8th grade. And I can't really describe what Math 8 is like. I know that there's a lot of shapes from when I've seen other people take that class, meaning they calculate volume, area, surface area, blah, blah, blah. But I remember that was the first year I took Algebra 1, which is a high school level class. And then when I was in freshman year, they put me in the sophomore geometry class. And then when I was a sophomore, they put me in Algebra 2. And junior year, advanced mathematics, which is just trigonometry. And then when I was in my senior year of high school, I took calculus. So I took Calc 1. I was actually in college at this time. And I took Calculus 1 the first semester, that fall. And then in the spring, I took Calc 2. And then that summer, after I graduated high school, I finished up Calc 3. So by the time I was in college, recent high school graduate, I had already taken my calculus sequence. I had also taken ODEs, or ordinary differential equations. And I wish I had taken linear algebra, but there was no way I was able to take it at the time, so I didn't take it. And they make you take, obviously they make you take other things in high school, because a high school is not solely about mathematics. They cover the subjects of biology, physics, chemistry, all the major stuff, history. I don't know if my high school was able to do some of the fancier subjects, like, I don't think we had, like our liberal arts drama department or whatever. I know there was people that took drama classes and whatnot, but I feel like different high schools, depending on what the parents, I don't know. I don't really know how it works, but I do know that no two high schools are the same. But I focused more on the STEM fields because I knew I wanted to go into something in STEM. Now, in high school, U.S. high schools, you get a little bit of freedom with what you want to take. So I obviously took more of the math, STEM-related fields in high school, but it's only set at a set. They only offer certain classes at a set time, but you are allowed to pick what you want to sign up for. I think they're usually called electives. And my electives were like computer programming. I know I took that, and I forget what else. I know I took computer programming, and I'm not sure what else I took after that. I think I took a cooking class, believe it or not, because I wanted to know how to cook when I was like 16 or whatever, which is kind of bad. Should be cooking before then. But if you want to go into college, so with respect to grades, I would say that grades matter a whole lot in high school if you're planning on going to college. If you're planning on getting a job straight out of high school, probably not. But the thing is, though, odds are stacked against you if you don't have a college degree, unfortunately. Now, I want to talk a little bit about networking when I get over here. But networking is also important here. But it's kind of hard to network when you're in high school because, I mean, what are you going to do? You're a kid. There's not very many places where you can work. But if you go to a pretty good high school and your parents, know some people from this, company that they work at, then maybe it's a different story for you than for me. I didn't really have a whole lot of connections that way, but whatever. But the big difference so going from high school to undergraduate, 4-year university, is that they'll look at your high school transcript and they'll see what kind of grades you get. And if you have bad grades, then a lot of the times they'll look at your SAT score, your ACT score. The SAT or ACT, they're two different tests. And depending on where in the United States you study, so if you're on like the East Coast, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that if you're on the East Coast, they like the SAT test. But if you're from like the Midwest, they prefer the ACT. So tell me which one, if that's true. I know it's regional, and I think from the last time I looked at a map, that was the case, but I could be wrong. So if you screwed up in high school, you can take this test and then send it in and show the school that you have a pretty good SAT or ACT score, and they may or may not let you in. Now, the thing is, though, is in high school, everything is paid for you. You don't have to pay for anything. You're a kid. But when you're an undergraduate, you have to pay for the school that you go to, pay for the classes. And a lot of times they're so expensive that the only way some people can go is to get student loans or scholarships, which is how I afforded school. So I had pretty good grades and I had a decent ACT score. And I was also at a community college at the time. I transferred from a community college to a 4-year school after I got my 2-year degree, which I listed some of the basic classes here, which really isn't much. So when the first 2 years of undergraduate studies, you're pretty much taking the core requirements, which usually includes some sort of mathematics, some sort of history, some sort of English and writing class. It just feels like extended high school those first 2 years. And then the 2 years after that, you're kind of focusing more on what your degree wants you to study. So if you're studying mathematics, for example, that's when you'll take like modern algebra and real variables, among other classes. So going to school is expensive. You can pay for it either out of pocket or with scholarships and student loans, which is what I did. And so if you want to go to a good university, grades matter a whole lot. And it also matters of who you know. Now, if you're leaving your 4-year school and you want to get a job somewhere, do grades matter then? A lot of places do not really care what your GPA was. I mean, it is kind of nice to be able to put like summa cum laude next to your name or degree or wherever you put it on your resume, which means that you're a really, really good student. I was lucky enough that I did graduate summa cum laude. But from my own personal experience, I don't really know if it helped me all that much, because I don't really remember being taught the importance of networking when I was an undergrad. Maybe I was taught that and I just wasn't paying attention, and I should have been. But networking is pretty important. It's better to be a C student with a ton of connections and a ton of friends in high places than it is to be a straight A student and being an island. You don't know anyone. That's pretty bad. And unfortunately, I think I was more of an island. I wish I participated more in stuff and get to know people, because when you leave university and you have those connections, I think that's going to be what people look for a lot of the times if you want to go get a good job somewhere. But afterwards, I decided to go into graduate school, so I applied. Now, if you're trying to get into graduate school, I think grades also matter there. So it depends on like how much of this education train that you plan to ride. going to graduate school, they're kind of looking for people that pull their own weight and people that are really determined, self-motivated, and they get a return on their investment. Because the big difference between undergraduate and grad school is that I think that this kind of feels just more like school. You pay out of pocket and whatever, but you pay them to just sit in the class. Because there's a lot of undergrads where you discover that if no one's forcing them to go, they just don't go. There are people that sign up for college classes and they never go to that class a single day throughout the whole semester except to go take the test. And that was not me. That's not... I don't know how people can do that, to be honest. I'm sure that they have their own reasons, maybe. But missing every single day is kind of inexcusable, if you ask me. So... But, I can't judge them too much, and I don't judge them. But I don't know if that's contradictory, but whatever. I said what I said. But in graduate school, that's pretty much, you can't do that. Because here, you're still a student. But when you're in grad school, the culture's different. You feel more like an employee of the university than you do an actual student. So if you don't go to class, that looks pretty bad, and it's overall should never be done. Because you're going to try and do research probably when you're in graduate school. I don't really know any other reason to be there. And if you want to do research, then you got to find somebody that you want to do research with, and they got to want to work with you. And if you don't come to class every single day, then they're probably not going to want to work with you. So, and also I wrote here stupid expensive because as expensive as going to college is, going to graduate school is it's not even a direct comparison. I don't even know. I think there's probably some sort of student loans you can get for grad school, as well as maybe fellowships you can apply for. But I pay for my graduate school as a GTA. So I applied to, I forget how many schools I applied to. I know it was a lot. But I only got an assistantship offer from 2 places. And the place that offered me the assistantship first is the one I ultimately chose. And I enjoyed the selection I picked, but it is a lot of work compared to, being an undergrad. And I would say that in graduate school, do grades matter? I think there's an understanding from a lot of the faculty that everyone that's sitting in the classroom is a good student. So they have some of them have this idea well, they're all good students. There's no one in here that doesn't deserve an A, as long as you put in the effort. It's still pretty stressful. I do kind of want more of the classes to be where you kind of just go and sit and listen and maybe take some notes. I don't like to take notes when I'm in class. I prefer to just listen to the instructor and absorb the information that way. So, but it varies from professor to professor. But typically in graduate school, because the T stands for teaching, so a lot of the times when you get an assistantship, they require you to do more than just than just take classes, because they agree to pay for your classes as long as you're doing something for them, which is usually teaching, which is what I do. I teach a business calculus course. So, to wrap up here, I would say in high school, if you want to go to college, grades matter a whole bunch. They really do. When you're in school, grades do kind of matter still. I mean, nobody wants to have the doctor that got D's in organic chemistry. You don't want to be that guy. So you do want to, and by the way, medical school is a whole other beast. I know someone that's trying to get into medical school. I'm glad I'm not going to medical school, let me put it that way, because those guys, you got to go above and beyond the call of duty to get, to become a real doctor, not no fake doctor like PhDs. I don't know. I can say that because I'm getting a PhD. But if it depends. If you're going from here to here, grades matter a lot. If you're going from here to here, I would say grades still matter a lot, but not as much. They still matter, but not as much. If you're trying to get an assistantship or scholarships and student loans, those three things, then grades do matter a whole lot. You should, and it's also, you're able to dig yourself out of the hole, by the way. And if you're watching this and you have bad grades, I don't want to discourage you. You can always, get yourself out of the hole, but you have to work harder than the next person, unfortunately. And usually, if you go from undergrad to grad, you have to take a GRE, or graduate record exam. I think that's what the R stands for. I could be wrong. But I was lucky that I did not have to take that test because COVID-19 was ripping through the country at the time. So no one could go in and take the GRE, so they just waived it. And so I was able to apply and get in without having to take the test. I look at the test now, and it doesn't look too bad. But that's because I've had 2 years of PhD graduate courses and 2 years of master's degree courses. So I'm a little bit different mathematically than I was before I was preparing for the test. Anyway, that's what I have to say on the subject. If you have anything different to say or something to add with this overall experience, be sure to comment below. I hope you found it informative. Would I recommend college to everyone? Probably not. I mean, if you're a high school student, I would recommend going to college because I think college has kind of become a necessity at this point in society until they decide that everyone needs graduate school. I don't know if that's going to happen, but maybe. Although maybe trade schools are also pretty good. It kind of depends on where you want to go. It depends on what kind of job you want to get. For me, it was quite clear that I needed to go to college. And then when I graduated college, I think the only option for me was to go to graduate school and try and get a PhD because I didn't really know what else to do. And I'm ultimately glad that I chose I don't have any regrets going to graduate school because I told my dad this, right before I moved. I said that if I got my PhD on Tuesday and I died the next day on Wednesday, it still would have been worth it. So ask yourself that question before you make a big life decision. And if you answer the same way I did, then go for it. But also, don't do anything stupid. Think about make your choice. Make smart decisions. We'll put it that way. Anyway, this video's gone long enough.